How do you want to paint? There are lots of videos out there on how to paint loose, how to paint in various refined stages, how to do this and how to do that. Now at the moment, my YouTube channel is in its infancy, though going forward, I don't think this is going to be, strictly speaking, a how-to channel. There are lots of channels out there that you'll see how to paint a portrait or how to mix flesh tones. And whilst I will be doing those things, not everything that I do is necessarily going to be a process video or a tutorial on exactly how to do something. I think I want a greater emphasis to be on general growth and development. Honestly, my goal right now is to build an audience and a community to show the kind of work that I want to paint right now. By this point, I've been doing this for just over 10 years, from the beginning of my education to where I am now in my career, which is pretty mild in its existence, but I'm starting to figure out how I want to put paint on a surface. I'm starting to feel comfortable with my own process. And by process, I mean set of tools that I have available to myself to use. There is nothing that I always do. There is nothing that I never do. There are things that I do a lot of the time, some things that I do most of the time, and there are things that I rarely ever do when it comes to painting. But when someone says, I always do this, or you never want to do that, they might say, I never, when it comes to mixing certain colors, I never use black. Use black, it's okay, you just need to know how to use it, it's fine. But now I'm trying to think about the subjects that I want to paint, getting comfortable with, as I said, how I'm laying paint on the surface, and sort of like when learning a language, for the longest time, you'll be doing sentence structure in your head, you'll be conjugating the verb, you'll be making sure that you're getting the right person in the verb tense. Are you speaking in the present, past, or past participles, depending on the language that you're learning? And for the longest time, I felt like I was doing that with painting. But now, things are starting to finally click, and I'm getting to that point where I'm actually thinking less about the how, and I'm thinking more about the what, more about the why. The how is, I'm gaining a sense of fluency, finally. I think. Maybe you think I'm garbage, and that's fine. Not everybody's gonna like what I do. And if you're a painter, not everybody's gonna like what you do. That's the nature of the business. But I want to try and understand why I am painting the way that I'm doing things. At the moment, I've got this full nude figure painting playing for you. It's on an ampersand hardboard panel that I've gessoed, and I've done the drawing on top, stained that with a raw umber underpainting, and now I'm going straight in with a block-in stage to get the whole image established. At the end of this block-in, someone could say, that's me done. I like how it looks. It looks loose, the values are right, it looks like a person, the proportions are right, things are correct, and it has a rough level of looseness that someone might be happy with. And I could just leave it like that. I could call it a study, it could be done, I could move on to the next thing. It's nearly at the end of that block-in loose stage. There are transparent areas, there are opaque layers. Mostly in the shadows, it's quite transparent now, and I could call it done. But that's not how I want my paintings to look. This is not a study, this is a full painting, and I need more refinement out of what I want my paintings to look like. So it requires additional layers, which is what I'll get to when I start back up on the shoulder blade. I am adding a stage of refinement, a stage of finesse, and that's what each progressive stage is. There are about 3 or 4 layers on this painting. Some are opaque passages, some are more transparent than others, depending on how much medium I'm putting on. But I am building up a layer of refinement to my taste. And I'm getting, as I said, I'm getting comfortable with that level of refinement. Now, there might be some people out there that'll say, get out of your comfort zone. Well, I've been in a very uncomfortable zone for about 10 years. And instead of comfort zone, you could say, I am finally getting a clearer vision of the aesthetic that I want my paintings to take on. I know the distinct style. I know how I want the paint to look on the surface. And I will say it's not a linear path to achieve and execute it. It's a feeling. I have to paint until I get there. There's no set finish line. I go until I get that effect that I want. I get the feeling that I want. For example, right now I'm working on the transitions down the core shadow of her arm. I will pursue that transition throughout the painting until it reaches a level of finish that just feels right. There's no specific answer to that. Now, two things that I think go hand in hand are how do you want to paint and what do you want to paint? What inspires you? First of all, I would say bugger inspiration. Paint things that exist that will help cultivate your skill level. At the moment, I'm painting a nude figure. Figure painting and figure drawing is a core foundation of representational art. And there are a few main subjects within fine art that are considered to be the baselines. There's figure painting, whether it's nude or clothed. There's portrait painting, landscape, still life, wildlife. Those are like the basics. You could expand from that afterwards. You can get into narrative, you get into Western art, you can get into fantasy illustration, or imaginative realism is referred to. Now, as it happens, if I knew that I didn't have to cater to any kind of audience, I didn't have to worry about social media following, I didn't have to worry about paying bills, getting commissions, getting views on YouTube, racking up hours of watch time, which, depending on your business model, are legitimate necessities in the modern day of being an artist. If all I had to do was please myself, then I know exactly what I would want to paint. And it's a nuanced reason why one can't just paint whatever they want to paint if monetization is a goal. And I'll get into that in just a moment. I'm sure there are some people that might just say, paint just what you want to paint. Ah, wonderful. I don't think it's a black and white answer. I think that there is nuance there that I'm very happy to debate with people. But I want to get into this point. Unless you just want to do this for personal enrichment, you don't intend to make a living off it, and you don't really care about showing your paintings that much, you're just doing it for yourself. Maybe you want to show your paintings, that's fine, you put it on social media, whatever. But if you want to turn this into a livelihood, if you want to be able to pay your bills, your rent, your mortgage, go to the supermarket and be able to pay for those things with art, congratulations, you're a commercial artist. There is no such thing in non-commercial art if you intend to monetize it in some form or another, to pay your bills, to save money, to go on holiday, to do the things you enjoy. Why do I say that? Well, you might say, I'm not a commercial artist, I'm a fine artist. I sell in galleries, or I sell my own original work that I like to paint, or I'm a commissioned portrait artist. Well, you have a market. Market equals commerce. You buy raw materials, you buy paints, you buy canvases or boards of some variety, and you convert them into objects that people can enjoy on their walls, and you sell them and you make a profit. Congratulations, you're part of the commercial market. You can't do any of this in a vacuum. If you are lucky enough or you're skilled enough to paint what you want, and you have collectors, those collectors will probably maybe not buy from you if you painted a subject that they weren't interested in. They could still recognize that it's by the same hand, but if it's a subject they don't care about, they're probably not going to buy it. I have some followers on Instagram, they like my fantasy work, but if I posted a painting of this nude figure or a lioness, which I'm also working on, they're not going to give a damn. It's not. They can see that maybe the painting of this is the same quality, of the same standard, but they don't care about that subject. They want fantasy, and vice versa. There might be people like nudes, or they might like portraits. They could give a damn about a fantasy project. It's the same thing with galleries. Galleries want consistency. They want you to keep painting things that sell. It's a business. They're not just hosting you out of the good nature of themselves. They want a cut. It's usually about 50%. You provide them with a painting, They sell it, you get half, they get half, they get to keep the lights on, you get to keep giving them paintings, and hopefully somewhere there's a profit margin that is acceptable to you so you can pay your rent and keep a roof over your head. That's all business orientated. It's not out of just the goodness of their hearts. Everybody's trying to make a profit in this situation. Just because it's art doesn't mean that it's not a business and that you're not trying to create an income out of it. Personally, for me, there is nothing else I want to do other than paint and draw in terms of livelihood. I don't see the point in me if I can't paint and draw. I have to do other things currently. I have to have a day job. I don't make enough of an income out of just art. I have to do other things in order to make an ends to a means to an end, one of those, in order to pay the bills right now. But in the long term, I have to do this. I have to do this. And if I have to do this, and if I want to do this full time, I've got to make it pay. And anybody who wants to do this exclusively has to make it pay if you don't want to have another form of income in terms of a day job that you loathe the idea of going to. If I didn't draw and paint, I don't see the point in me. I have other responsibilities. I have a wife, I have a house, I have a pet, I have those things and various other interests. But if I don't draw and paint, I don't see the point in me. So I have to do this. And maybe you feel that same way as well. You've got to do this, but maybe like me, you can't just do this currently, whatever your situation is, because bills exist. And so unless you can find a way to monetize this completely, we have to go find resources elsewhere. Now, I know it may seem like I'm jumping about all over the place in terms of what I'm talking about, but that's kind of where I am in this YouTube journey. I'm trying to figure out, who am I talking to? Who is my audience? Honestly, I don't know right now. As I said at the beginning, I do know that I don't just want this to be a how-to channel. And if you are at that stage of trying to figure out how to do very specific things, I believe in a formal education of some form or another when it comes to art training. There are lots of affordable options out there. I don't think YouTube is a great place to get a core foundation. It might be a place to expand your knowledge, to get tips here and there, but I think you need to be in a dedicated program of some form. Not saying university, they're super expensive, not always great. There are lots of online options to learn from people in a dedicated learning space. I don't believe YouTube is that. But I'm talking about these various things because I'm trying to figure out who is listening to me, who is watching this, and introduce yourself in the comments. Tell me who you are. What is your situation? Are you just learning? Have you been doing this for 50 years? Have you been thinking about these same things? How to monetize your art? How you're trying to make it into a livelihood? Are you a competent painter but still unsure of what your focus is and where you want to hone in on? No. So let me know in the comments and we can start that dialogue. And honestly, it's almost quite cathartic because when I ask, what do I want to paint and who am I painting for? The truth is, I am painting for you now, for YouTube, for the sake of this platform. Earlier in the year, I found myself at a bit of a, earlier in the year as in 2023, we're just starting 2024 now, I found myself at a bit of a crossroads as to what the hell to do with my art. I had recently been totally pursuing fantasy work. Do I keep on with that? Do I just get a bigger hammer and start whacking away at that nail? Or do I try and switch gears? I actually found myself in a Barnes & Noble bookshop, and I was in the fantasy and science fiction section, and I was looking at a bunch of the book covers in there. And contrary to some advice that I had been given a few years ago that was, if you wanted to get into sci-fi fantasy book covers, learn how to paint multiple figures in a range of environments that all look like they're all working together, or multiple figures in a single environment, you'll get work doing that. But I was in this Barnes & Noble 2023 looking at these major science fiction fantasy publishing covers, and it was a single iconic figure with a bit of a graphic fuzzy background. I looked at another one, single iconic figure, graphic or fuzzy background, and it was that over and over. 20 different books. It was basically the same cover, the same composition. And I thought, I can do that. I can do that. That looks hard, but as in to do it well, everything is hard, but it looked doable. It looked so doable. And it was totally contrary to the advice I'd given before. That was now outdated advice. If it did work once, I don't think painted covers look like that anymore. I thought, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna design a whole bunch of book covers, and I'm gonna do it well. I'm gonna get a bunch of book cover commissions. And I designed a bunch. I didn't execute them completely. I designed the sketches and the thumbnails, and I got 10 out that I really loved. But then I started thinking, how many people actually paint these covers? Because there's no consistency. Some are paintings, some are photographs, some are quite graphic. The amount of people that actually get to paint book covers, that pool is so small. And it just didn't seem like a bankable avenue to go down in terms of with my artwork. And as I said, prior to this, my whole focus had been fantasy, and I tried to make that work by going to conventions, setting up a booth, and selling my work in terms of originals, prints, all of that kind of stuff. And that didn't work out. The shows I went to, I lost money, people wouldn't buy the stuff, got plenty of compliments, wealthy with compliments, but people didn't want to commit to buying stuff, which is a problem if I want to make it work as a livelihood. So I found myself here, talking to you on YouTube, picking subjects that I think might be interesting to watch in the form of a video. And it's also a question of having to strike a balance between what do I want to paint with what do I think might be interesting to see painted. Because it can't be exclusively one or the other. I can't just do what I think the public would want to see, and I can't just do what I would want to do. I don't think anybody would be happy in that scenario. I think it has to be a bit of column A, a bit of column B. There has to be some compromise where I feel good about the painting subject, and you, the audience, whoever you are, please let me know who you are, enjoy what I'm painting. But you also enjoy what I'm talking about. I'm really now, honestly, just talking from the heart, talking about things that I have been most prevalently thinking about recently. And maybe you've been thinking about these things too. How do you want to paint? What do you want to paint? Do you belong anywhere? Am I good? Am I garbage? What's the situation happening? Because painting takes up a lot of hours, and mindless day jobs take up a lot of hours, and my brain wanders, and these are the things that I think about. Now, as it happens, there are a set of paintings that I really want to show you, that I really want to commit to painting, that I want to show here on YouTube, that I want to do extended versions of for my Patreon channel and my Patreon subscribers. By the way, if you like this video and you want to see the full time lapse, a whole hour long, you can see that on my Patreon. And if you want to support me and this channel and my paintings and help me pay for food for my dog, and my wife wants a hot tub, then head over to Patreon and subscribe at the $5 level so you can watch this full length unedited time lapse. It's an hour long. I think you're going to really like it. Now, something I do want to say as I approach the refinement stage on a hand coming up here, I want to address something that I hear people say a lot. Hands are hard. Oh, I'm bad at hands. It's a really interesting thing when you think about it, because it's a very common thing that people say in the art world, in representation or realistic art. Hands are hard. I'm bad at hands. How do I get good at hands? If you think about it, hands are no harder or easier than any other part of the body. People say hands are hard as if faces are easy. They're not. But they're not any harder than any other part. Faces are hard, hands are hard. I mean, you say hands are hard. Are you great at feet? How many feet have you painted? You're probably just as bad at painting feet as you are as hands, but for whatever reason, at some point in art education or other artists will pass on this adage, hands are hard. Before you actually say that out loud, stop and think, are they actually? Or if they are they actually harder than any other part of the body? Am I amazing at faces? Am I amazing at portraits, but I just suck at hands? If that is the case, probably just means you haven't painted enough hands. So just go out, paint some more hands. Don't just prematurely decide that hands are hard for no reason. Now with that, if you've made it this far in the video and suffered through everything that I've been saying, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're sticking with it. If you have made it this far, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Really trying to make this channel grow and bring you more videos like this. And as I said, if you really like this and you want the extended version of the video, there's no narration to it. It's just an hour long of the time lapse. You see every single brushstroke. Head over to my Patreon and you'll find that there. And if you're interested in buying this painting or any other original paintings, you can head over to my website at macaluzoarts.com and you'll find a nice selection there if you'd like to get a painting for your own home or a print of something else that I've made. Now this painting is coming to a close with a few glazes to enrichen those core shadows. And I actually did this painting on a wood panel. Normally I paint on linen, but I had some panels left over from an older project that I wanted to use up. And although I prefer working on linen because it grips the paint much better, I do love the final veneer of a painting on a wood panel. I just think it looks really cool. So thank you so much again. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.